Hi everyone. I am sitting on my porch, and I promised the conference goers at last weekend's conference where I was speaking, I promised them to go one by one down the list of questions that they had about being a healthcare social media specialist. So I will cover that right now, and I'm hoping that those of you who are interested in hearing the answer to the first question can actually ask me questions, because this is interactive. So I can answer all of you out there who are professionals who are dabbling online, who are specifically worried about the trolls. And I'm going to actually look for it. Actually, I don't know if I'm going to find it, but I had a list of all the questions that everybody was asking, so just to show you guys what's going to come up. But I'm not going to show you. I will just answer the first question that I had from the conference last weekend where I spoke. And the question comes from the professionals in the audience, and someone said, "What do you do about the trolls online?" Now, it depends on your definition of troll, right? Each of us thinks what makes up a troll is different. So to me, trolls are just people that interact with your profile negatively. And there's a lot of people out there that interact negatively online that would not interact negatively in a real life interaction. And the reasons are obvious, because when we are on Facebook or on Instagram, people don't know who we really are. And so we can be protected by this sort of faceless interaction, and we can write things down that are just rude. That to me is a troll, when someone is negative about your account. Now, I think that first and foremost, it's important as professionals dabbling online to consider the fact that not everyone means things in a bad way. So even if someone comes off as negative to you, you've got to always sort of, first of all, place yourself in their shoes. Secondly, give people the benefit of the doubt. And so if you are considering it trolling, think about the other person as maybe someone who either doesn't understand or maybe has an experience that makes them react in a certain way. But the bottom line is that try to soften your response and your reaction, and take the high road, right? Because we're professionals and we still want to act like professionals, even though it's a social media interaction. So that's A. But sometimes there will be trolls that are just nasty or not nice. And those are the people that you've got to decide what you want to do. Now, for me, it depends on what someone says. So an example is, I wrote an article and I shared it on my social media platform, and someone wrote to me, "You're so effing ugly." And they didn't say effing, they actually said the word. And I'm a potty mouth, but I'm going to spare you guys from saying the F word, but literally wrote, "You're so effing ugly." Now, I don't really care. I mean, that's a troll, right? Because it's a negative interaction, but I personally don't care if someone says that. But I actually used that comment to make a commentary, and I used the comment to write another blog post article, and I used that just angry, hateful comment as a learning lesson. Now, what did I teach from someone calling me that I'm so effing ugly? I, first of all, used it to teach parents that there's meanness out there. And when you say that to an adult is fine being told that they're effing ugly, but a child may not be okay with that. And so we have to really be careful with our children, and we have to protect them from online interactions, because I'm perfectly confident with myself. I don't care what anyone thinks. But a teenager or a child who is told that could really take it to heart and We see that happening, right? We see bullying happening, and we see children sometimes, God forbid, but commit suicide because they've been told they were, fat or ugly or whatever people say that's mean. And you have to be careful as parents. So that's one learning lesson. The other learning lesson is that I'm a physician. And so my response was that, thank goodness you don't need to be good looking to be a doctor. Which I loved because it was true. You actually don't need to. We can teach our children that too. We can tell them that you can be successful and happy in life, and you don't need to have all the things that you're, quote, supposed to have. Like, do we really need good looks? No. We can have a good brain, and we can be successful with a great brain. So I used it as a learning lesson. So it's just a fun way of like turning around your troll's reaction, and using it as a learning lesson. Now, again, I like to consider my trollers, the trolls, the people that are negative, the people that have negative feedback. I always like to use it as a learning lesson, because at the end of the day, people say things to you, and some of it is just spiteful or mean, but some of it is fantastic. And it actually makes me think of the things I could do better about myself. Introspection is key in life. I am constantly thinking of how I can make myself a better person for both myself and for others. And so my trolls help me to do that, because it helps me to dissect what they're saying. Are they saying this because they're in a bad place, or are they saying it because maybe I did do something that wasn't right? Maybe I should rephrase what I just said, or maybe I should reword what I just wrote in my article. Maybe it is hurtful. Maybe they're too sensitive. Maybe. But it's certainly something that I should consider. And so I actually think that trolls are useful. Someone's asking me, have you had many trolls? I haven't really had many trolls, but I definitely have trolls. The more audience that I have, the more followers that I have, the more negativity I see. It is true. And the more positivity I see too. I get so many, you know what I'm going to do a live on, and the physicians out there are going to love this. Speaking of trolls, Medscape owned by WebMD, they reached out to me when I wrote about my having left clinical medicine. They loved it. They said, we want you to write for Medscape about your experience. So I said, great. I was like, why not? I want to change healthcare. I think healthcare is broken as an internist. Sure. So I told Medscape, yes. And they basically, I wrote an article and I sent it in, and it was all describing the reasons why healthcare is broken. And Medscape responded by telling me that they already knew why, they already covered all those points. They already knew why healthcare was broken. They wanted to know from my personal vantage point what my family thought about it and how I was handling it from a personal perspective. So I said, sure. And I wrote it. I wrote the article. And it was well received, but the physician trolls came out from left field. I mean, really. And I'm going to cover it here on a live. I've actually decided. I've decided to take the comments that I received. Now, I received amazing, supportive, encouraging emails and commentary and so many positive responses that outweighed the negatives, but I cannot believe how much negativity physicians poured below my article. And I've decided that I am going to copy and paste each comment and make a commentary like this in response to the person. I think it's a great exercise. I think I feel like it's a great lesson in social media in how quick we are to judge people. in the same way that people judged me on my Medscape article, right? So I was judged with all the negative comments underneath the Medscape article from people that didn't know my vantage point and maybe just didn't understand, right? Because in a 1,000 word article, how do you really know my specifics or what happens outside of that article? And so I am going to take those comments and paste each and every one of them here and address each one. And tell me, for those of you guys listening, tell me if that interests you. Will it interest you to take troll responses from a Medscape article of mine and hear what my response is to each and every one of them? I think I'm going to do that. Because those are trolls, and those are physician trolls. Now, they may not think that they're trolling because I am so removed from a Medscape article, right? Once you write for a big outlet like Medscape, it's almost like the people responding, the person who wrote it is like unreachable. It's kind of like responding to a New York Times author. You're sort of no longer picturing them as a human. You can kind of say whatever you want, and it doesn't matter what their feelings are. And it doesn't matter what my feelings are. I didn't take it personally. I just think it's an important point to display on social media to show us how we become the trolls, the professionals become the trolls. Because I've seen it happen a lot. And if you want to know the platform where it happens a lot on, it is Twitter. I see a lot of just toxic behavior on Twitter. For those of you guys listening, please ask me questions because I am covering the topic of trolls. I was asked about trolls in a conference that I spoke at last weekend at Physicians Helping Physicians. I spoke about healthcare social media, and I gave a big lecture with slides, and people really enjoyed it and loved it, but had a million questions. I couldn't answer them because there was literally like 5 minutes to cover at the end for Q&A. And so I told them that I would cover one by one here on my account. So that is the first question. How do I handle the trolls? And again, like I went into a whole commentary. Ooh, there's bugs flying around here. But at the end of the day, the trolls don't really bother me. I am very confident with my messages because I know that I am a good person and I know that I am well-intentioned. And when you're a good person that's well-intentioned, then what does it really matter what people think? I always use comments for introspection. I always use like a feedback loop to make sure that I always question myself and what I'm doing and double check and triple check and quadruple check. But at the end of the day, you've got to like move forward because you're a human. And that's something that's hard to do on social media because social media is so unforgiving. Hey, Monisha, how are you? I'm going to wave to you. Hey, so nice to see you. I'm talking about trolls on social media because I was asked that at a conference I just spoke at. Do you have anything to say about trolls on social media? How do you guys handle the trolls that are listening? And if you're listening to this later in a replay, write down to me how you handle trolls. Maybe I'll write an article about it, about trolls, online trolls, because I think that it's up to us as adults and as professionals to respond and to pave the way for our children. How are our children going to tackle their trolls? I'm good. Thank you so much. And it is an important topic. And again, it's an important topic for me to address and for each of you, the professionals that are watching me, to address, because together we can start these discussions and help our children to tackle their trolls, because the world is becoming online and we are going to start interacting online. They're already interacting online when they play Fortnite. How can you divide virtual versus real world? That's a good question. Well, it depends to what endpoint goal. Like when you say that, can you give me a little bit more information on that? Like, do you mean, where it comes to, because what I consult with physician, where it comes to physicians, is how do we use the online world to further our goal, to further our drive to get to our goals. So the online world is an amazing vehicle to get to our endpoint goals, regardless if we want to increase patient load or get thought leadership, be invited to speaking gigs or get quoted in media. or find hobbies or network and find ideas or get our ideas out there and start movements, start influence in scientifically sound ways and pseudoscience. So it depends what you mean by divide virtual versus the real world. You are, and I've written about this on my website and on SomiDocs, you are completely in control of your online curation, right? Of that online journey. You can share whatever you want. Right now, I can say whatever I want. Obviously, a live is harder because it's live, and so whatever I say, I can't take back. But otherwise, things that you post are completely, you can edit them. And you can think through them and you can strategize. That's what I'm teaching right now in the masterclass. I'm teaching the first week of a 6-week masterclass. And my first week was teaching them about curation. They are so surprised because they've always been told, just go for it, just jump right in. And an element of that is true. Yes, just jump right in terms of fear. Conquering your fear, jump right in. But don't jump right in. Think through your brand name. Think through online branding concepts so that you can do it right the first time and get the biggest bang for your buck because you're a physician and you're a healthcare professional. You're too busy to do it again and again. So get it right the first time by putting thought into it, by getting a coach or getting a consultant like me or signing up for a masterclass or getting into the Facebook group or becoming a SomiDocs member, etc., etc. You just try to take the high road. Monisha, she's a physician. She's saying she just tries to take the high road, usually not worth the energy. Yeah, I agree. But I think sometimes, yes, depending on the comment. And sometimes it's great for introspection. I take my trolls and I think to myself, how can I make myself better? Depending if it's just them not being in a good place versus maybe my message really didn't come out well. You know how many times I've miscommunicated or said something that wasn't right, etc., etc. And then she said, meaningful discussion is important, but usually trolls are not interested in meaningful discussion. Yeah, I know what you mean. It depends. Again, it's situational. It depends what kind of trolls we're talking about, right? So again, I'm a person who is so open-minded that I actually believe that everybody who is negative towards me can teach me and serves as a teaching lesson. So, yeah, we risk creating an echo chamber, and I don't necessarily need to argue with my trolls, but trolls will say things that I listen to. I don't necessarily follow through on them because sometimes it's just cruel or mean-natured, but I think that having trolls interact with you can, again, it can almost strengthen your message because it sort of pierces your message and shows you the deficits in it and shows you the way that people are thinking about it. So I'm going to give an example from a friend of mine who wrote a book. She wrote a book and it was meant for children. I'm trying to change the details, so no. It was meant for children. Now, she wanted to sell it, and the response in one of the outlets was that they don't need it because they can just Google all of it. Now, she was on the phone with me and she was really frustrated and she was venting to me because she's a writer and she needs these outlets to pick up her book. And so I said to her, why don't you re-angle that and take that feedback and use it in a positive way? And here's how you're going to do it. Because she had an answer for that. She said to me, people want to give it to it was meant for older children. She said they feel safe when their children have this book. Knowing that their children have this book makes them feel safe. Even if they won't use it, it's like a safety cushion. I said to her, voila, you have literally just tapped into something you have not tapped into. Their feedback should help you to reframe how you present yourself and your book online. Now you've literally got a piece of content with which to sell your book. Because literally that's clearly what people are thinking about you, about this book when you present it. And now you can address that, because if people are thinking that they don't want to buy your book because they could just Google the stuff, and you have an answer to that that's good, put it out there. Sell it that way. And she was like, my goodness, you're right. I didn't think about it that way. So again, that's an example of taking your troll and building something positive out of what your troll is saying to you. Something positive out of a negative. So that's basically how I tackle my trolls. I've had to block very few trolls because, again, I want to give trolls the benefit of the doubt. If you're joining now and you really are curious about how I tackle trolls, then you've got to listen to this whole discussion, because this is live and you've probably missed the beginning. But I will be saving this to my IGTV and probably under the social media tips. And just so you know, I just spoke at a conference, just to recap, last weekend about healthcare social media, gave a slideshow, had a ton of interest, a lot of signups to my masterclass, and also a lot of questions that I couldn't answer. So I promised all the attendees that I would answer them here on my lives one at a time. Additionally, what I'm going to do is take my Medscape article, and I'm going to take all the troll comments that were negative, and I'm going to start responding to them here in my live so that I can respond to my comments. Why not? This is my space. I can respond to whatever I want. All right, last question. How can you create positive barriers to turn negative to positive? Great question. I'm trying to understand what you mean by how I can create positive barriers, because I love the question in terms of turning negative to positive. I love turning negative to positive. Positive barriers are basically inherent in social media, right? They are a function of social media, because social media is one way to some degree, right? Like I right now am live. So a barrier has been lifted off, because now it's not just a static post. It's a post that's live, and that it can be hijacked to some degree by comments, but nobody can say anything that is inappropriate, right? You can write something inappropriate, but you can't hijack my video feed. So there's still a nice barrier there, and a nice level of a nice limit. And so I'm still in control here. And that's a barrier that's useful for me. To me, social media is an amazing way to get your thoughts out there and become a thought leader, because you are completely in the driver's seat. And I recently wrote an article about that in SoMeDocs. I even created a little graphic with a car. And I said, you're in the driver's seat of this journey, because you are. You are literally curating your content. You get to completely decide what you're the expert in and where your brand will go, which is why when I teach physicians and I consult with them, the first question for them is, what is your endpoint goal? Because we've got to know where we're driving to, right? You got to know when you get in your car what your destination is. Otherwise, how are we going to get there? How are we going to choose the right path? Right? You got to define your endpoint goal. So anyway, I'm going to cut it here because I've been blabbing for a long time. That's it. I will be back with the next question in the conference line of questioning. And I will be back with my Medscape responses to the trolls of my Medscape article. I'm actually excited about that, because I've been meaning to do that for a while, and I'm hoping that Medscape will like my responses. All right, guys, enjoy the rest of your Saturday. I hope that you are going out. I am about to drink a glass of wine with my hubby and enjoy just some chill time in my backyard. Bye.